The castle stood high upon the cliffs, watching over the valley like a great stone sentinel. For centuries, it had been filled with laughter, soldiers, and servants. But now silence ruled. The once bustling corridors echoed with only the sigh of wind through broken windows. The princess, the last heir of her family, was the only soul left to walk its halls. Her name was Elira, and she had been alone for weeks. A plague had swept through the kingdom. It took her father, the king, within days. Her mother followed soon after, and the servants fled in fear of the spreading sickness. Even the guards had abandoned their posts. Elira remained, too bound to her bloodline and her crown to leave. She wore her silver gown each morning and sat upon the cold throne, pretending for a moment that she still ruled over something other than dust and decay. At night, the castle changed. She heard doors creak open though none had touched them. She heard footsteps in the corridors above her bedchamber, though no one lived there any more. Sometimes she awoke to whispers so faint they could have been her own thoughts or the voices of the dead. Elira lit every torch she could find, but the flames gave her little comfort. The shadows in the corners seemed alive, twisting and stretching as if mocking her. Once she swore she saw a figure standing in the courtyard, staring up at her window. When she ran down to confront it, the courtyard was empty. Only the well stood there, its black mouth yawning wide. Days blurred into nights. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, but she rationed what food remained in the larders. Bread turned hard as stone, meat stank with rot, and water tasted of rust. Still, she survived, but survival was no longer her only fear. She felt the castle itself watching her, hungering for her as much as she hungered for food. One stormy night, thunder shook the towers and rain lashed against the stained glass. Elira sat by the hearth, trying to read one of her father's old tomes, when she heard a knock. 3 slow, deliberate raps upon the great oak doors of the hall. Her blood froze. No one had knocked at those doors since the world outside had died. She stood, clutching a candelabrum for light, and crept toward the entrance. The knock came again, 3 hollow booms that echoed through the hall. She called out, her voice trembling, "Who stands at the gates of my castle?" Silence. Her heart pounded, yet she forced herself forward. When she unbarred the doors, they swung open with a moan. Wind howled inside, scattering ashes from the hearth. No figure stood upon the steps. Only the storm raged beyond, soaking the courtyard in sheets of rain. But when she turned to close the doors, muddy footprints stretched across the marble floor, leading inside. Her breath caught in her throat. She dropped the candelabrum, the flames sputtering out as it clattered to the stone. She fled back toward the throne room, but the shadows seemed to shift, following the trail. Somewhere in the darkness, she heard wet footsteps, squelching closer and closer. Elira ran up the stairs to her chambers, slamming the door shut behind her and bolting it. She pressed her ear to the wood. Nothing. Silence. Only her ragged breathing and the pounding of her heart. Hours passed. She dared not sleep. The candle on her desk burned low, its wax dripping like blood upon the floor. At last, exhaustion claimed her. She dozed, her head resting against the cold glass of the window. When she awoke, she was not in her chamber. She lay upon the floor of the banquet hall. The long wooden table stretched before her, and upon it were silver plates filled with food, fresh bread, ripe fruit, steaming meat, and goblets of dark wine. Her stomach twisted with hunger. Figures sat there, clothed in tat, but something was wrong. The food smelled strange, sweet and rotten all at once, and the chairs around the table were no longer empty. Aired finery, their flesh gray and sagging, their eyes sunk in hollows. They raised their goblets in unison and turned their eyeless faces toward her. The feast before them turned black and foul, crawling with worms. The air reeked of death. Elira screamed and stumbled back. She ran from the hall, her bare feet slipping on the stones. Every corridor twisted in ways she did not remember, leading her deeper into the castle's heart. She swore the walls themselves shifted to trap her. Doors she opened led only to more darkness. At last, she found herself standing before the well in the courtyard. The storm had ended, and the moon glowed above like a pale eye. The well seemed larger now, its stones slick with shadow. From within its depths came a voice, soft and beckoning. "Elira." She fell to her knees, covering her ears. "No, you are not real. Elira." The voice rose, layered with tones as though all who had once lived in the castle spoke through it. "We wait for you. Join us." She crawled back, but her gown tangled in the stones. Something cold and slimy brushed her ankle, coiling around it. She shrieked, kicking wildly. A hand fin, gray and dripping with black water, had reached up from the well. Its fingers dug into her flesh, pulling her closer. Elira tore free, ripping her gown in the process, and ran. She did not stop until she reached the chapel. She slammed the doors and collapsed before the altar, clutching the golden cross. The silence there was heavy, oppressive. Dust lay thick upon the pews, and cobwebs hung from the ceiling beams. Yet for a moment she felt safe. She prayed aloud, begging for deliverance, for mercy, for anyone to hear, and someone did. Behind her, the doors creaked open. Soft footsteps padded down the aisle. She dared not turn, but she felt the presence growing nearer. A chill spread across her skin. The air smelled of damp earth and rot. "Elira," the voice whispered again, but now it came from inches behind her ear. Her body froze. Slowly, she turned. There stood her mother, the queen, clad in her burial gown. Her skin was pale as ash, her lips blue. Her eyes wept black tears. "Come with us, daughter," she said, her voice both tender and terrible. "The castle is empty. You are empty. But we can make you whole again." Elira's scream tore through the chapel, echoing off the stone. She fled once more, but the castle twisted around her, leading her back to the well. The figures from the feast now stood around it, their mouths open wide. Her mother among them, reaching out with cold hands. The voices rose as one, chanting her name. The ground trembled beneath her feet. The well gaped wider, its darkness swallowing the courtyard. Shapes writhed within it, countless hands stretching upward. The air was filled with whispers, promises of love, of peace, of an end to her loneliness. Elira staggered back to the edge, her body shaking. Tears blurred her vision. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere left to go. The castle had trapped her, claimed her. With one last cry, she was pulled into the abyss. The well closed behind her, and the courtyard fell silent. The castle stands still upon the cliffs. By day, it is only a ruin, a hollow shell of stone. But at night, the torches flicker to life, and a princess's scream echoes faintly from within its walls. The villagers say the castle is cursed. They say the princess still walks there, waiting at the gates, whispering to the storm. They say that if you knock upon the doors 3 times, she will answer, and you will never leave again. And the castle, ever hungry, waits.